Robert, thank you for coming. And let me introduce you, if I may. Robert is an excellent offensive lineman. That's the first and foremost. Now, except for that, he's also uh, Israeli Christian Arab. His mother was an Israeli Christian Arab, and his father is Egyptian Coptic. And he is currently studying political science, government, and human resources as a cadet in the very elite program of the Ministry of Interior. He is also a lecturer, and he teaches entrepreneurship in the northern part of Israel. And he is an excellent guy with a lot of experience. I wanted Robert to come and speak with us a little bit about his experience, because usually when we tend to think about Israeli society, we tend to think about the Jewish story of Israel, which is the main theme of Israel. They don't call it the state of Israel for nothing, but inside the mosaic of the Israeli society, we have many different stones that create that society. And I'd love for us today to hear the story of Robert, the experience, the life, the unique life experience of Robert, and I think it would be very interesting for us to learn about it. And thank you for coming, Robert. And if I forgot something critical, you're more than welcome to add.
No, you've done a great job. Thank you so much, Nati. Thank you for the introduction. Uh, I'm really happy to be with you guys. I'm always happy to share my story with whoever willing to listen. And I'm really glad with what you're doing. It's been really a pleasure knowing you for the past couple of years. And I really enjoy our conversations. So I'm happy to be here.
Right. You should know, Robert. They don't know the side of me as a football player. That's funny. We met in the circumstances, initially playing one against the other, but eventually playing side by side for the same team. And I think that the experience that we had together in our conversation is quite unique to the world of Israeli football.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I think, yeah, probably they see you here dressed with a button-up shirt and stuff, but they don't see you on the field hitting some guys. I'm glad I played most of the time with you rather than against you, so I'm happy about that. Yeah, so should I just start with my background? I think,
yeah, maybe. Listen, you have a very interesting experience as an Israeli Christian Arab. Or first of all, what is it like to be a Christian in the Arab community, maybe, or an Arab in the Israeli community?
yeah.
These things are very interesting, I would think, for people who are looking at the Israeli experience from the outside. I would say that it is also for Israelis quite interesting, because while there are 20% Arabs in Israel, it's not like every town has 20% of Arabs in it.
Yeah.
Most of Israeli Arabs live in mostly Arab towns or cities, and most of non-Arab Israelis, Jewish Israelis, live in exclusively Jewish cities, where there are some mixed cities as well. So maybe about that experience.
Yeah, so I think I'm gonna take a step backward and share a little bit about my background. I don't want to take too much of the time.
Sure, no.
Okay.
Your
Yeah.
background is an amazing story.
Yeah, so I think it's important to me to share that just for you guys to understand my point of view, my upbringing, and yeah, it's crucial to understand it. Um, I think, yeah, my story here in the land starts before I was born. As Nathaniel said, I was born to a Christian Arab family. My mother is from Nazareth. Um, they've been here for 7 generations. Before that, they traveled here from Lebanon. My great grandfather was he was a businessman, but back in the day, he was selling different type of merchandise. He was traveling a lot, and then they settled here in Israel. So they've been here for hundreds of years. But my mother was born here in Israel at the time where, yeah, Nathaniel brought them up. So she's from Nazareth. When she was born, Arab citizens, most of the Arab citizens who were not living in mixed cities and towns were under military law. So they had limited movement. They weren't able to fly only in certain circumstances. They don't have passport. They don't really have. So yeah, they are under military law. So my mother
Yeah,
was born.
between 1948 and 1965, if I'm not mistaken,
Yeah.
Israeli Arabs were under martial law.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's what I'm talking about. Yeah. So she was born at a time where it was relatively, I think, a year after the Arab citizens got their citizenship, and they've settled their, with the state of Israel, and they got their passport. But it's still relatively new. You are just now entering society, and she was born at that time. Her family, also, they had very interesting and ups and downs with the government during the 48 war of independence. Some of her family members, her uncles, were evicted from Israel during the war. She had an uncle who was 15 at the time. He was working at Haifa at one of the plants there. And one day,
Haifa, guys, here I marked it on the map. You can see Nazareth, you can see Haifa. Haifa was El Amal, sometimes it was called in Arabic, the mother of labor. People would come to Haifa. Haifa became a very industrious city during the British Mandate, with with a modern seaport and factories. So many people, Jews and Arabs, came to Haifa, which had a train, it had the seaport. So people migrated to Haifa to work there.
so he was working at Haifa. He was 15 at the time. As they tell the story, the military, the relatively new IDF, was just conceived a year before that. They went to the plant and they evicted all the Arab employees. They just kicked them out on ships, and he ended up sailing to Lebanon. And he didn't have the chance to gather his stuff, or he wasn't in touch with his family. So nobody really knew what's going on with him. And only 5 months later, they know that he was still alive. He was able to bring out a message. So I'm telling this. I'll get into it more in the future of this call, but I do believe in the right of the Jewish people to be in this land, and the right of them to defend themselves. But in a war, like any other war, sometimes some bad stuff happens. Sometimes it's out of control. People get hurt, innocent people get hurt. And it was just one of these situations where, although I do believe Israel had the right to defend for itself, but again, an innocent family, and it's not a unique story. There's many stories like this. But yeah, so I was born into a family that was torn apart in a sense because of the IDF and this new government. But the thing is, I was like, my mother and I, we were never raised to hate. And although they had their personal experience with the government, my grandfather, my mother's father, he never passed it down, his feelings to the kids. He always taught them to be upstanding citizens, and he always taught them to be part of the community. not to exclude themselves from the rest of the community. And funny enough, my grandfather was a carpenter, and when he opened
Carpenter from Nazareth. You
from
cannot
Nazareth,
go
yeah.
more Christian than that, right?
There are some wait until you hear the part about Egypt. There are more similarities
Yeah, to
coming
go
up.
to Egypt. Yeah.
Yeah. So, anyways, when he decided to open his business, he didn't open it with an Arab partner. He opened it with a Jewish partner, and his partner was a Holocaust survivor. And his partner didn't speak any Hebrew or English or Arabic, obviously. So my grandfather studied Yiddish to be able to communicate with him. And
Crazy.
right before my grandfather passed away, I think I was around 12 years old. My mother sensed that it's getting, it's his time. So we were visit them regularly, and in his death, I'm talking with my grandfather, and I grew up in a Jewish community, so we speak Hebrew together, and he started teaching me Yiddish. So just imagine an Arab grandfather teaching his Arab grandson Yiddish. Uh, it's like for me that's my life, right? It's not anything special, but I understand now that as I grew older, when I share it with people, it's very unique. So yeah, so I grew with both these sides where in one hand there was a lot of suffering, but the other we our family, our values is to look in the future, not to obsess over the past and stay there, but look up to the future and do our best to integrate into the community we're staying in. Um, my father, on the other hand, he's Egyptian. He was born and raised in Egypt, from Cairo. His family originally from the south. They were farmers. His grandfather moved to Cairo. He comes from a long family of. Uh, they were serving in the military, in the police there. They had a very long legacy, and my father himself was a police officer.
How
He
far in
met
the south?
my
I'm putting the map again, so maybe we
yeah. Yeah, sorry if I'm going too much all
No,
around.
it's all right. It's
Yeah.
it's fascinating. It's fascinating. So you said your father was already born in Cairo?
Yeah. He was already born in Cairo. Yeah.
That's Cairo. And where from in the south did they come to Cairo? You
Uh,
remember?
yeah, a bit more north than Aswan, but like
Okay. Aswan is a
uh
very important both in biblical history and I mentioned in the Bible several places, Migdol Sevene, as well as in Egyptian history. Yeah.
yeah, so it was like in a town. Yeah, there's a Siut and Aswan in the south. So it was a town just up north of Aswan.
Yeah.
Um
Egypt is a little bit confusing because Upper Egypt is actually the south of Egypt. So sometimes people confuse the two because the Nile is running south to north.
yeah.
So so people are mixed sometimes. But this is Aswan, a very important city, and this is Cairo. Uh,
Yeah.
yeah, go ahead.
So, anyways, he was a police officer. He met my mother in Egypt, in Alexandria. There was a conference. There was a conference for Christians in the Middle East who were volunteering or doing some church work. They were both teaching in Sunday classes in the church, in their local churches. And there was a conference in Alexandria, so they met there. My mother attended the conference twice. First time they met, they were in touch, stayed in touch by letters and sometimes phone call. But yeah, it was the old-fashioned way. Uh, a year later, she came to the conference again. They got engaged and decided to get married. They both got married and decided to stay and live in Egypt. So they lived in Cairo. And I was born in a time where were living in Cairo. My mother didn't trust the public or the private, for that case, for that matter, health system in Egypt and the hospitals. So I was born in Israel, in Nazareth, and when I was 3 weeks old, she took me back to Egypt, and I've stayed there in the early
Because
parts of
there
my
was a
childhood.
census, an Israeli census. You were taken to Egypt.
Yeah,
Yeah, census like mifkad, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
So she took me back to Egypt. We were staying there in Egypt a couple of years. My father, they didn't like the fact that he got married to an Israeli, although she's an Arab. But that just goes to tell you how delicate and how, all the Arab, relationship inside of the Arab people, we're not all just the same. There's a lot of different views, even racism in our own culture, unfortunately. And one of the things, although he got married to an Arab, they didn't see it in a positive way because she was an Israeli. They viewed, they call them the 48 Arabs, the ones who are living inside of Israel who have citizenship, and some of them viewed them as traitors. Although, again, it's not up to them, but yeah. But they couldn't fire him over this because technically Egypt and Israel have a peace treaty, so it wasn't a actionable cause to fire him. But they demoted him and sent him to like very dangerous tasks. He was moved to task force that was supposed to be in charge of arresting Bedouins over drug charges, the ones who tried to smuggle drugs over to Israel. So he was part of the task force, was supposed to stop them, and he almost got shot once, almost got killed, and that for him was a wake-up call. He understood he has no future there. Even before that, as a Christian, you are limited in Egypt. You are limited. There are certain ranks you can go over because you're Christians in Egypt. Same in the government, same in the military, same in the police, because the way they see it, they think that the Christians are not as loyal, or when a time comes, they will put their faith above their nationality. So they are limiting Christians in the ranks they can get, jobs that they can get. In many senses, Christian Egyptians, there are a lot of similarities between some of the countries treated Jews in Europe, where there's certain jobs you cannot do. And what happened is most of them ended up working with money, banks, realtors, stuff like that. So the Christians there are relatively wealthy and successful, but they cannot do it inside the government. They're limited to what they can do.
Just so we get a scale, guys,
Yeah.
there are more Christians in Egypt than Jews in Israel.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think I'd also go on a limb and say there's more Christian in Egypt than Jews around the world. It's between 25 and 30 million Christians in Egypt, Coptics, around that
25,
number.
that's a very, very 25 to 30, that's a lot. Right? That's definitely more
Yeah,
than Jews in Israel. It depends. Counting the Jews in the world is a little bit complicated. I actually did a course about the demographics of the Jewish people at the Hebrew University with Professor Sergio de la Pergola. He is one of the famous demographers of the Jewish people, and it's actually quite difficult to count, uh, really,
Yeah.
because it depends on self-definition or how do you define. I would guess it's the same with everybody. How do you count exactly who's a Christian? Yeah.
So, anyways, yeah. So there are a lot of Christians there. That's the point. Although Egypt is a large country, right? They have 110, maybe a little bit more million people. So Christians are taking 20-25% of the total count. But that's something. I don't know if it's the Israeli mentality, but every time the Christian there suffer a lot of time persecution because of their faith. Their sometimes their churches get raided or even bombed, and there are terror attacks aimed at Christians. And every time something like this happens, when I'm talking with my family there, I think maybe it's my Israeli side, but like, why aren't you guys doing anything? Why are you guys fighting back? Like you have the power, they have the capital, they have and it's like they're massive numbers, but they're also like very peaceful people. Uh, so yeah, usually they just take the suffering and stay quiet and not do much about it. So, anyways, back to my story. They moved back to Israel. My mother, she got a job as a teacher. She taught in a Jewish school in Tiberias. And so back at that time, my father didn't speak any Hebrew, so he was actually staying with me at the time. It was cheaper than a babysitter, so he was staying with me. And I think it's very big of him. He had the humility to know to at that time to my mother was she was the earner in the family, and he knew that, and he gave her her place. Sometimes in our culture, it looked upon as no, the man needs to be the bread bringer and everything, but he knew it was more logical for her to work until he learned Hebrew. And later on in his life, he got a lot of success in businesses. He has a very successful construction company now and other ventures. So he got his time to, make up for it. But at that time, he was staying with me. And I don't necessarily remember these years, but I think it was a positive experience for me. Between my siblings, I have the most pictures and albums and everything. So he was taking care of that.
You know,
Uh,
the number of kids in a family, there is a very, geometric line, going down with a pictures thing. They say, I have 6 kids. I think our kids have a lot of pictures, but in my family, I was 6 out of 10. I think the pictures I have is only if my family got a ticket. My father was speeding and the camera got him, so I had a picture. That's it.
yeah, with big families, it's difficult. Yeah, the firstborn get a lot of attention, the lastborn, but the kids between not so much. So yeah, so I grew up in so because my mother she taught in a Jewish school, we moved to Tiberias just so to be closer to her job. So again, grew up among the Arab community. I still was very much in touch. I would attend church every week and would visit our family in another every week. But my
What kind
friends,
of a church did you attend? Did you attend like an Orthodox church?
yeah. So my background is Orthodox, but we attended a Baptist church. So my mother's other uncle, he was one of the founders of the Baptist movement in Israel, and he was a pastor for 60 years. He was the pastor of the Nazareth Baptist Church, which is the biggest Baptist church in Israel. So it's also inside, I would say, between inside the Arab community and the Christian one. Um, yeah, the Baptists are a minority. There is 120,000 probably Christian in Israel, and then all this Christian movement that are relatively newer, Baptist and evangelical, they make up around 5,000 people, like probably 20%. So just like a minority inside a minority inside a minority. Right now, the movement is doing much better, but at the beginning of the time, like depending on your domination, it was looked upon, like if you're an Orthodox, then it's a total different thing than if you're Catholic, right? We think, Christian, it's all the same, but for them, uh, like there's a story of an Orthodox woman who got married to a Catholic guy in the 70s or 60s, and on their wedding day, um, the Catholic Church there in Nazareth, they put in the bells that they put when there's mourning, like if someone dies, because that's it. He's dead. He's not part of our domination anymore. So it was very extreme back in the day. Today, I would say it's much less extreme than that. Most of the Arab Christians are secular, um, so it's very different. They're not religious at all. So yeah, I would say that's the community I grew up in. So I went to a Jewish school, Jewish high school. Most of my friends, I would say, are Jewish. And yeah, being an Arab, growing in the Jewish community, that could give you really an identity crisis. I always knew who I was. I always knew I was an Arab, but I was just never was able to fit in to either side. And I always felt I had to choose, like I had to choose one. I couldn't be both. And I've tried to fit in a Jewish community, in a Jewish culture, and I've never felt I was quite fitting in. And even if I was starting to feel like I was fitting in, there was something happen, maybe a war, terror attack, something, and then suddenly everyone is looking at me, or talking to me as if I'm a Hamas spokesperson, asking me to condemn. Like, do you condemn it? Are you for it? And although I had nothing to do with it, and although Christians historically are not involved in a conflict, and but like if some of them did take part, it's like very, like, I'm talking, you can count it in one hand, the ones that are involved in something like this. Like the Christian as a community here in the land, they are not involved in the conflict up until now. So yeah, and the same thing with the Arab side, where I didn't feel I quite fit in there. I'm always looked upon, like I grew up outside the community. I grew up as a Jewish, or as Israeli, and yeah, I've always found it hard to fit in. And I remember even like um, it just felt like a curse. Like I was like, God, oh, why do you make me this way? Why I just can't be one? Why can't I be like all of my friends? But as the year passed, I've started looking at it as a blessings, as like I understand like that, and also that I don't have to choose either one. Like if I'm too much with my Israeli friends, or in my job, in my life is mostly in the Jewish community, but then I get homesick a little bit. I miss the food, the cultural, but it's the same thing in the opposite way. If I'm too much in the Arab side, I start missing my friends and everything. So what I came to realize is I don't have to choose. I can be both, and I've seen also how I can use my upbringing to bring closer the two nations. Like I don't think I'm the one who's gonna bring peace or anything, but in my community, I know I can bring change. When I'm speaking to Israelis, I get to express and bring some from the Arab side and educate them on some subjects, and they see, oh, here's an Arab guy who's not trying to kill us. And then when I'm talking to Arabs and show them, the Jewish community, the Jewish side, to say, oh, here's an Arab who grew up in a Jewish community. He turned out okay. So that's sort of my life mission now. I'm trying to work in my community between the people I know, and just bringing people together closer. Try to get the gap try to bridge between the gap and bring them together. In my local, where I am, whether it's my job, my hobbies, all that sort of stuff.
Wow. It's
Yeah.
listen, I think Robert, your life is so interesting, and I could ask questions, but I think it would be I want to open it. Usually I open it for questions in a later part, but I think it's so intriguing and interesting to kind of have a better understanding of your unique situation in life, that I'll open it for the guys to ask. And if something comes up and I want to ask, I'll ask as well. But guys, you have the opportunity to hear from Robert and Betsy. Please go ahead. If you want to share where you're from, Robert, you should know that. Yeah.
I'm in Florida, Robert. I love your story so much. You have touched my heart.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Netanel does this with us. He has been able to make a bridge between Christians and the Jewish people. We study the Bible together, and it's the most beautiful thing. So I'm very proud of you. I have a lot of questions for you. Are you married?
I'm not married, not yet.
You're not married. Okay. I just wondered, did you marry Jewish, Arab, Christian?
By the way, Betsy, you should know that Robert loves his Bible. He learns the Bible every day, both Hebrew Bible and the Greek Bible.
Yeah.
You should invite him to some of our classes, Netanel.
Maybe, certainly, maybe.
And then I want to know which Christian Bible he studies, and the Coptic Bible, did you use like the Greek, or is it the Egyptian? What Bible are you reading now?
So actually, I read the Bible in Hebrew. I read
and
it
the New Testament also?
Yeah, also the New Testament. In Hebrew, there are two main versions, the Delitzsch translation and the newer translation. I read them both just so I have context and understand it.
And you can connect it. It's very hard to connect the New Testament words to the Old Testament. It's not the Old, but you know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
There's no trail between Greek and Hebrew. It's a lot of work.
So Delitzsch did some of the work for you because Delitzsch kind of translated the Greek into what is biblical Hebrew, even though it is a little bit anachronistic, because the Hebrew in the time of the writing of the New Testament or the time of Jesus was not the same Hebrew as in the time of the Hebrew Bible. But Delitzsch, what he did, and later on, he edited, and then his successors edited it as well. They kept the language of their translation very close to that of biblical Hebrew.
Yeah, so with Coptic, Coptic is in a sense it's a dead language. It is only used by priests, but the general public don't speak it, unfortunately. When the Muslims conquered Egypt, they made everyone speak Arabic. They were very brutal in some areas. It's a bit graphic, but I'm just gonna say it. They rape the women and cut off their tongues so they won't be able to speak with their children their language. So
when was this?
7th century.
When the Muslims came to Egypt, I think it was around 800 AD, something like that. So Coptic, right now it's only used by priests. So I understand some of it. It's a fusion between Greek and ancient Egyptian. So the letters are Greek, but some of the words are ancient Egyptians word. So yeah, but it's not really a language that they speak anymore.
Okay, so now, do you stay kosher? Do you drink wine? Are you Baptist? Which dietary are you following? Because the Baptists don't drink.
Yeah. So right now I would say my views, my religious views, are closer to those of Messianic Jewish views.
Yes, I'm going to ask you about that too. Good.
Yeah, because for me, with Christianity, it always felt that they were overlooking the Bible, that we call it the Old Testament. And
yes,
it just felt,
exactly.
Yeah, it just felt that, like, the way I understand and read the Bible, Jesus, he didn't mean to create a new religion.
No, he did
He always
not.
said, everything that is said and told in the old book, it stands. And for me, it always felt that Christianity sometimes overlook the Bible. So my views, although I'm not 100% aligned with them, but I would say it's closer to what I go to, like a Messianic congregation.
I was going to ask you if you know Nitzar Francis.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, the singer with Joshua Aaron, and they are Messianic Jewish singers, and I know them very much. So I wondered if you had met him. He's Arabic, Netanel, and he sings with the Jewish Joshua Aaron.
Yeah,
a lot.
I know
do you
who
know
Joshua Aaron is? Yeah.
You do? Okay.
I just the reason I know is not, first of all, my knowledge of music is not that good, and definitely not of Messianic Jewish music. My one of my students is coming to Israel in October, and he sent me the itinerary, and I saw his name. And what happens to me when I see something I don't know is that I Google it. So I Googled him up, and now I know who Joshua Aaron is.
Yeah, Joshua Aaron is a dear friend of mine. I'm
actually
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah. I'm meeting with Nizar on Sunday. We're supposed to meet together, get together.
Because he's really kind of becoming popular in the United States in this the Jewish Messianic Jewish movement right now. The people are loving the Arabic music.
Yeah. So I'm meeting with them on Sunday. We're gonna go over some stuff. It's so funny that you know him. It's not
I don't know him. I know.
Listen, you see, Betsy, how small Israel is. My students don't realize that. Oftentimes they get to realize that over the years, because every time they say, I say, yeah, I know him. I know someone who knows him. So there you go. Now, Robert, you mentioned Joshua Aaron. He meets with him on Sunday.
I better be quiet and let other.
I'm saying that's something Israelis do all the time. When Israelis meet each other, they try to figure out, where do you know him? Oh, from the army. Maybe I know his brother.
Yeah. Ron.
Yeah. Hey, it's good to meet you, Robert. I am from Ohio. I'm a Christian pastor here in Ohio, and I want to second what Betsy said with Netanel, who's bringing all these Christians and Jewish people together. And I come here constantly trying to reconnect my church in particular with the Hebrew Bible. I'm aware of the disconnect a whole lot. And I appreciate your story. My own perspective, a lot of people I know think that Christianity started in Europe during the slave trade. And so they're, so why are you doing that? Those are just the religion of your oppressors. I says, well, it goes back a lot further than that. And so I tell the story about the Coptics, and you just shared that same story. And I just appreciate what you're doing. And I would be interested, to tell people, I know this guy now, I met this guy now who says the same thing, but at one time, North Africa was covered with Christians,
Yeah.
And so, but that changed after the 8th century. But I just want to let you, I appreciate your story and what you're doing, and I also thank Netanel here for welcoming me as a, I'm not Messianic. Although I get the point.
Me neither.
The Hebrew Bible, because I study it all the time. Yeah.
Yeah.
I get the point, and I always, I was telling Netanel a couple of weeks ago, I said, I'm still trying to convince people that Jesus Christ is Jewish, that, yes, he was Jewish. He's not some Gentile guy from Rome.
Yeah.
But
he was Jewish.
I just appreciate
he wasn't white. He wasn't white, they
right. He wasn't white. He did not eat ham and cheese sandwiches. And he would not eat burger and cheese sandwiches for that matter.
Yeah. But thank you so much, Ron. I appreciate you so much for speaking up. And I just want to say that Christianity reached Africa before it reached Europe. You know,
Certainly did.
the first believer, like the first Christian country was Ethiopia
Yes.
back in 300 or 400 AD.
No,
And
if it's 400, you've got, depends. If it's 400, then you've got the Armenians who accepted
it was before the
Jesus.
Armenians. It was before the Armenians.
So it's the beginning, the very, very beginning of the
Yeah.
4th century. Because
I know it for a fact that Ethiopia was the first Christian country before the Armenian, before the Roman Empire.
So it had to be the beginning of the 4th century, because by 313 you've got the Edict of Milan, and then you've got 325 already the Nicene Convention, the Nicene Creed, and everything. So at the before that, few years before that, the Armenians, and if you're saying the Ethiopian even before, so it has to be the first decade of the 4th century, something like that.
And there's at least there's at least one eunuch I read about in the New Testament, who's a Christian, but that dates back quite a ways. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's the same with Egypt, where a lot of the first, I would say, Christian philosophers were Egyptians. Yes. And unfortunately, a lot of times it's overlooked just because it's not, it's not consistent with the narrative that we have today. But there's a term called Desert Fathers, where just like Egyptian, one of the first philosophers were Egyptians. And they have a lot of great ideas, and it's overlooked now. It's not part of the mainstream, but it's definitely, when I view Jesus and Christianity, I am aware of the movement in the States, but it's not. It's the way I see it is different. And as I said, I'm trying to be more connected with the Old Testament. I actually participated in a Tanakh like trivia tournament, which is like very big here in Israel, as an Arab, as a Christian, and it just was important to me to show as well that it's part of our culture. It's important. I don't see it. I don't view them as separate. I think they complement each other. And this is my view.
Well, in the very beginning, it was called a sect. In the very, very early years, they thought it was a sect until about AD 70. The Romans blew everything apart. But yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Sure, Ron. Excellent. Thank you, Frank.
Thank you very much for your story. It's beautiful. I thought that your story about the movement of your family over 7 generations or more brought you like an Abrahamic walk to Hamakom, a place.
Yeah.
And, and when you're talking about bridging the cultures and the traditions between all these people in that area, I just, I can't sing praises properly to you for that, but it's a noble work. And I just wanted to ask if you're familiar with Rabbi Jonathan Sachs of blessed memory.
Unfortunately, no, I don't think I'm familiar.
He wrote a book. It was just before his passing, Not in God's Name. And it deals very, very well with exactly the issues that you are dealing with in your work to bridge the cultures and traditions. And it's beautiful, it's based on Torah, of course, but I really praise you for the work that you're doing. I think it's so important. It's so important. And again, it's not a matter of collision of religions or cultures, but it's, what brings us together, ultimately under Hashem.
Thank you so much, Frank, for
thank you
for sharing. I'm gonna look up the book. I'm
intrigued now. In Hebrew, he is called Jonathan Sachs, not Sachs in Hebrew, and he was the chief rabbi of the UK. Very, very amazing figure. Really, one of the greatest rabbis, non-Israeli rabbis of our generation. Even though he passed away relatively young a few years ago. and he was a prolific writer and an amazing, inspiring figure. Very much into. He was Sir Lord Dr. Jonathan Sachs. He was knighted by the Queen and a member of the House of Lords, and he was and had a great sense of humor and all of the good things, really. So you'll enjoy reading his books or seeing his some of his talks on YouTube. He is an inspiring figure with a great sense of humor, which is always, a must.
I'll look him up. I'll look him up.
Yeah.
Nathaniel recommendations are always spot on. I like what you recommend. So
Thank you
yeah.
very much. Thank you very much. Zohar David, James, I saw you wanted to ask a question, so you can unmute the microphone and yeah, go ahead.
I'm sorry. I hope it's not an inappropriate question. Do you go to mosque?
I do not. I do not.
Okay.
It's not inappropriate in any way. I'm here for the inappropriate questions. I'm here to answer all the questions.
Well, I know some Christian Muslims.
What do you mean Christian Muslims? Christian Arab is not. Muslim is a faith. Christian is a faith. Arab is an identity of a culture of people who came from the Arabian Peninsula. It's a language, it's a culture, but it's not a religion per se. So while there is an overlapping, a majority
that was
overlapping.
precisely my question.
Yeah?
That was my question. It was about the religion, Muslims, because he would know what I'm talking about. I'm sure he does. And I don't mean to say it like that, but I was just wondering. Okay, I know Coptic Christians also, but but there is Christian Muslims, right? And am I incorrect in that? Well, no, I know I'm not incorrect in that.
There are no Christian Muslims, to my knowledge. It contradicts each other. There are Muslims who became Christian, who had to, especially in Muslim countries, who had to keep quiet about their faith. I know there's movement of Muslims who received Christianity in Saudi Arabia and different countries. But that's like a different thing. They're Christian now. They don't identify as Muslims. Christianity and Islam contradict each other, so you cannot be both.
Well, it depends on your version of Christianity. See, to them, they don't believe that Jesus died. It was his brother, his twin.
Yeah, so that's just good old Islam. That's all of the Muslims, so they believe Jesus existed. They call him Isa.
Not believe in Christians.
I'm sorry, I missed the last part.
Well, obviously, you know that's what they believe. You know this to be true, so they do believe in Jesus.
Yeah, they believe that
So
Jesus was a prophet.
And you're a Christian. Ain't that the simple definition of Christian?
So let me just a second. Sorry for hijacking the conversation. In Islam, Abraham, Moses, David, Joseph, Jesus, and many other figures are considered to be prophets. Okay, but they're believing that Jesus was a prophet does not make a Muslim. It's part of the orthodoxy of Islam to believe that Jesus was a prophet. Just he wasn't he wasn't divine in any way in Christianity. In Islam, I mean, he was a prophet. He wasn't the final prophet. The final prophet was Muhammad, and he is the final prophet, the seal of the prophet.
No, that's incorrect. It could be interpreted as the greatest, not the final. There is no
seal of prophecy. Never. Yeah, there are some factions of Islam that
none of the three main religions put a finale to none of it.
No, actually, most of Islam does. Most of Islam does. So if you recognize a prophet after Islam, you are considered by most Muslim as mutadin or kufar or something that is not part of the orthodoxy of Islam. So the main majority of Islam views Muhammad as the final prophet. Not all of them, not all. It's very hard to exclude. When it comes to religions, you've got all kinds of, not, let's say, Jews, generally speaking, don't believe in many things. There are factions, small factions of Jews, let's say there are Karaite Jews, okay, who today are few tens of thousands of people, maybe few thousands of people. Again, they believe all kinds of things that most Jews don't. But if I want to generalize about a religion, I would say that Muslims, the overwhelming majority of Muslims, views Muhammad as the final prophet. Okay, so
Well,
that,
I understood that word to mean greatest. We're talking about
right,
one
but
word,
most
right?
Muslims understand him to be the last. I'm not saying that there are no Muslims who may differ from that, but most Muslims view that this way. Okay, so thank you, Zoa and Jean, please.
Yeah. Again, thank you, Richard, for your testimony, your sharing. It's brilliant. I underline that recommendation that you look up Rabbi with all his things, Jonathan Sachs. It's just amazing. And
Jean is
yeah,
speaking from Zimbabwe.
I'm speaking from Zimbabwe, so I'm Africa with an African Christian. Hi, Richard. Hi, Robert. I mean, I called you Richard, Robert. Yeah, and I just wanted to say, no, thank you. Thank you for your sharing and just sharing the life you've gone through. And I'm hoping I can get this recording afterwards because I've had surgery. I fractured my leg and I've got a nurse that comes every morning. And she's she's from a Jewish family from Nazareth, but Arabic. So she'll be just so thrilled to hear that you're from Nazareth and a Jewish Arab. She's, yeah.
A Christian
She
Arab.
doesn't. She's not yet a Christian Arab. I
No,
think
she
she will
is
be. She's
Jewish,
not really.
but Robert.
She's secular. She's Jewish.
Uh.
Yeah, secular. Well, not secular. She's Jewish, but she sort of, yeah, in between talks about Jesus, but like, you know. And I've got many friends who are Messianic Jews too. I just I favor that so much. And again, like we've said already, thank you for all you're trying to do. And yeah, I would always be listening to Rabbi Sachs. So, and he was just an amazing guy. The way he joined, just had an open heart, had the truth, but had an open heart to just bring unity, bring people together, and that. So thank you what you're doing as well, Robert. Yeah. So thank you for your.
Yeah, of course. Thank you so much for willing to listen. And I think I'm very encouraged by you guys. And I think Arab, especially Christians in Israel, we are at a spot where we're in a critical spot where I think they're going to have to make a decision. Are they aligning themselves with Arabs, with Palestinians? Are they aligning themselves with Israel? I know that many of them are trying to integrate into the culture and be part of the culture. And I think Arab Christian, their place is with Israel. I think Israel is the best option for them. As Christians, what I see around the Middle East, in Muslim country, many of them get persecuted or looked upon differently because of religion. And the only country where I can truly say from experience there's freedom of religion is Israel. I've been to Egypt, I've been to Jordan, I've been to different, other Arab countries, and Israel is truly where you have freedom of faith. And for Arab Christians, I think the smart move would be to align themselves with the country and integrate into the culture. So
want to ask you,
yeah.
Robert, since we're getting into the political side of things, how about the youth of the younger generation, like your generation? I'll give you a few examples of what I mean by that. First of all, your situation as a Christian Arab, as you said, the numbers are dwindling. As a fact, guys, Christian Arabs are the most educated section of the population in Israel. They have the most degrees, Christian Arabs. That's a fact in Israel, and they tend to have less kids. Okay, and the numbers are going declining, and the same goes for the city of Nazareth, your specifically, which is your town.
Yeah.
How do you view the younger generation? What's happening with them? Also politically, and maybe not just within the Christian society, but I think there is a bit of an identity seeking part of the younger generation of the Arab population in Israel. I'll give an example. I was just talking with some of my students and telling them that yesterday I was in Abu Ghosh. Abu Ghosh has a very unique historical story, but I'm not going to tell the whole story. I want to say that it used to be very, very pro-Israel, and it still is considered very pro-Israel. But the younger generation in Abu Ghosh, in the last elections, the younger generation voted for Balad. When Balad, guys, Balad is a political party in Israel which is the most right wing as far as Palestinian identity, if I may say, if I'm correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah.
And it feels like we as the Israeli society are losing the younger generation in the Arab society.
Yeah, I agree. I definitely agree with your statement. And yeah, I might add also that Balad is considered a communist party. So so what's happening now with the younger generation is I feel like many of them have tried, they're not really seeing a future for them in Israel. They don't feel like the new government, even before that, but they don't see themselves part of the culture. Many of the Christian end up leaving Israel, either to the States or Europe, but they're definitely like incline of number. More and more Christians are fleeing, are leaving, and the younger generation, I think they're just looking for acceptance and a place to fit in. And I think that's one of the things where Israel has failed to do so, and just try to integrate them, as part of the culture. And one of the things, I'm not gonna want to get too much of politics, but the latest government has recognized some of the injustice that the government did to the Arabs and tried to fix that with the different programs and budgets and stuff like that. But even this has been cut down, trimmed down. And I think, yeah, we're at a crucial stop where if things are not going to change, many of the Arabs here will eventually, their views will be more and more radical. And yeah, it's a whole new territory in the future we're heading to. And the outcome is, I don't think it's going to be positive, but it's not too late now. I think if Israel will understand how to take these, younger generation and integrate them as part of the culture, same as they did with different minorities and different, there's still hope. But yeah, it's uncharted territory in terms of Arabs here. Yeah, because I think here in Arabs, it works differently, I think, than any other place in the world, where in America, for example, the younger generation is less religious and less radical. And when you go younger, the generation in Europe, they're less religious, but in the Arab world, it's the exact opposite, where the younger generation becomes more and more extreme and more religious. A little bit same with the Jewish community as a whole, I would say, where instead of people, being less religious and more open to stuff like that, people are being more extreme, and the younger generation being more extreme. And yeah, I don't know if I have a solution. I think people that are smarter than me have been deliberating at this and trying to figure it out. I don't know what the solution is, but I can point at the issue and call it as it is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really something that we have indeed to consider as far as the future. Guys, any other questions you want to ask Robert? Go ahead, Rosilis.
Hi, Robert. I just wanted to
Hi.
let you know I love your story, and you are indeed a bridge between the two groups. And I think you should be proud of that position. I wanted to know, you're a linebacker. Netanel said you were a linebacker. Does that
No,
mean
no, I said an
American
offensive
football?
lineman. An
Oh,
offensive.
offensive lineman. Okay, that sounds
Oh,
like American
sometimes also
football.
defensive lineman. Sometimes also defensive. Plays both sides.
Is
Yeah,
that
look at me. I
size?
can't be a linebacker.
Come on, come on.
You look like a linebacker. Hey, are you referring to American football or soccer?
American full tackle football.
Oh, you too, Netanel?
Yes,
Oh my
for
gosh.
several years, and yeah.
So
Don't-
Robert, I have
yeah.
to ask you, are you Netanel's age? Are you about 38 now?
No,
No, I'm 27. I'm
Oh
just
my
gonna
gosh.
say, don't be fooled by Nathaniel's appearance. He's a very vicious football player. You don't want to play against him.
Oh, okay. No, thank you so much. Thank you so much for coming on the Netanel show and talking to us about your background. And I'm so impressed with all the languages you speak. Everybody in Israel, Netanel and everybody else.
no, you're getting a small sample. That's a problem in statistics. You have to get a large sample size in order to get the statistics right. If you only look at me and Robert, you might get a very uneven statistics. You'll think that all Israelis are American football tackle football players, for instance, which is far from truth.
Well, okay, I'm very impressed, Robert, then with your language ability, and Netanel's also. Okay.
Thank
And
you.
thank you again, guys.
Thank you so much.
Okay, guys, any other questions? So, Susanna wanted to write that she is from Ireland. You can say it yourself if you want, Susanna.
Thank you. Yes, I'm from Ireland. I understand not fitting in because I sort of feel a citizen of somewhere other than the planet, but your views and your desire to find unity, I totally respect. It's been on my heart for many a year, and my prayers will be forever with you. Your family, your history, that you're willing to be so open and talk to us about it all. It's beautiful. And, your beliefs fit right in with all of us here. You can probably tell, we're with you.
Thank you so much, Susanna.
Found your people.
I appreciate you so much for speaking up. Thank you.
Okay, guys, so you have a friend in Nazareth if you need, or in Tiberias.
Oh, you have a friend in Glasgow if you ever come to Ireland,
If you ever
You have a
find
friend
yourself in Glasgow.
in Dublin even. You don't even have to go all the way out there. You have a friend in Ireland. You all know that.
Right. And that's great. Next year, God willing, I'm arranging a group to come to Israel next year, roughly September next year, roughly. No exact dates yet. And maybe we'll visit Nazareth. If we go, if we take the biblical route 60, we start at Beersheba or Hebron, and we can make the whole way to Nazareth. So that's a plan. Thank you, Robert, for
Yeah,
coming. Thank you
Nazareth.
so much. And it has been a pleasure. We were talking about having this meeting for a very long time, and I'm glad that it worked out that eventually.
Yeah, me too.
And it's a pleasure. And thank you from all of us.
Yeah, bless you guys. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
so
Thank
much.
you.
Wonderful.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye, guys.
Hashem.